Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Folks, if you are looking to put a good quality roof on your home to protect your family and your belongings, visit danielhoodroofing.com. Ask for a free estimate and take a look at all the testimonials on their site from happy clients. There are tons of them. danielhoodroofing.com. Trust me, you go there, see for yourself. You learn everything you need to know about one of the top 100 roofers in the country, in the country, according to a recent award that they received. Daniel Hood Roofing, danielhoodroofing.com. Okay, David won't give up any dirt on whether or not Nico is a $8 million man or not. But let's assume he's going to get a nice deal from Tennessee's collective, Spire Sports. My question is, that sends a message out, which on first blush, well, good. It's making players think, hey, I can go to Tennessee and get money. But depending on how much money they have, is it a bad thing that you've now got other recruits who are going to show up saying, I want Nico's deal? And granted, everybody's got different star rankings and different positions, but we know how that works. If somebody's getting X, somebody else wants X. Is that a downside? I mean, I guess if you have the money, it's not. But could Tennessee's collective or some other collective out there doing the same thing, could they run out? In other words, if you give a huge chunk to one guy, can that backfire with the other guys? Or am I just looking for things to be concerned about?
I mean, I think people on every level of college football understand the impact of the 5-star quarterback. And even if you're a 4-star running back, you know, I think especially considering that for a long time you got nothing, that even if you don't get whatever Nico is getting, you still can feel good about where you're at because you're not going to be scrapping for dimes and having to worry about, well, what time does the dining hall open? Like, you know, go Uber Eats something, dude. Like,
Arian Foster, who had to have tacos delivered because he was starving.
Yeah, poor I think people will understand, like, the market eventually. You might have some people that might grumble, and then, you know, I think the one thing that might happen is if a guy's got a big NIL deal and he doesn't produce, and we haven't seen it yet because we haven't had it for that long, and you've got this kid on your roster that's making, you know, $600,000-$700,000 and he doesn't play, then you might have a situation where it's a little uncomfortable. But I think it'll be fine.
A year ago, we had a bunch of former Vols on the show. It was before the football season. We had a bunch of them on here, and we were talking about this NIL stuff. We went to break, and in between segments, off air, there was discussion of, boy, if I were an offensive lineman and somebody was making this kind of money, I don't know how happy I would be about that. So I've had a lot of people send that to me over the years. You don't know what a locker room's like. Nobody cares. They're all brothers in there.
Well,
I've heard this from some guys who were in UT's locker, and they do think that there could be some issues.
What some of these collectives are doing is basically establishing a baseline of, like, okay, so if you make, like Nebraska, for instance, right now, Texas is doing these like baseline deals where if you come in and you're starting, you're going to be making like 6 figures minimum. And then anything else on top of that, then you can do on your own or figure out or do that. And some of these collectives are doing some baseline deals so that everybody on the team is making like a livable, solid wage. And then if you blow up or you're a super recruit, maybe you make more. But they don't want to have that so that there's people on the team that are scraping by.
Is there a point, though, Spire Sports specifically told you what, their goal is $25 million a year?
Yeah.
All right. I guess you'd budget that out wisely. But it would appear if your budget is, let's say it's $1 billion, whatever, if you're required to have $1 billion in one, at some point you could run out of money.
Sure.
So, I mean, you have to be wise with the kind of deal. That's why if somebody gave $8 million in one deal to one guy, I just wonder how much more money they've got laying around right now.
Well, that particular deal,
whoever it is,
is still like $2 million a year.
You say whoever it is with a straight.
So whoever it is, so it's still like $2 million a year. So if you have a budget of, you know, whatever.
And I don't know that anybody's $225 right now. That's the goal.
Yeah. We're going to need a collective salary cap to try.
Well, I was about to say, it looks like the NFL. The quarterbacks get all the money in the NFL. You don't see any offensive linemen.
Well, we were talking about this before the show. I talked to a coordinator in the league this week, and he was saying if he was setting things up right now, he would have somebody on his staff that would be the GM of like managing how all of these collective stuff is like sussed out. And from state to state, you can't do that yet. that's technically illegal. It would be in the state of Tennessee. I think in some, I don't know all the state laws because they're all very different.
They're all
But in the
different.
in some states, that would be legal. And so figuring that out and saying, okay, this is what we want to allocate here, this is what we want to allocate here, I think is something that will be eventually a part of the sport. It has to be.
And you've already got schools who are now adding a GM of the transfer portal.
Yes.
So you've got a player personnel guy for the portal, and then you'll have a player personnel cap analyst for the collective. It's a different beast. One thing that's different about the pros, mamas and daddies aren't as involved in terms of why is Aaron Rodgers getting that while my receiver son isn't?
And it's
you
public.
You get to UT, you're going to hear some of that.
All those
Or in
contracts are
college.
public. You can see those.
Right.
Nobody knows what anybody's making here. That's one of the reasons why our story had a lot of impact. Is because this stuff doesn't have to be reported. It's not foiable. You can't. You have to have somebody that gives it to you.
Foible, meaning freedom of information.
Yes.
A little journalism.
Sorry, but yes.
Jargon.
It's
there.
new to college sports.
I will
because so
say
much of
that
college sports is
To
foiled.
answer your original question,
Okay,
though,
let's go.
I do think a lot of recruits are going to at least have a lot of questions for the Spire Sports Group and for Tennessee's coaches on this. I think, yes, it'll be a little bit of a headache, but the speculation's out there. They can't put that back in the barn, so I'm sure it'll lead to some questions. at the very
Right.
least.
Whether they're telling us he's the
Yeah.
$8 million man or not, you're going to have a lot of people asking if he's the
Yeah.
and if so, how much do I get?
But I would argue it's going to be it's so widespread and it's going to be so widespread that I think enough of that's out there. Those questions are coming regardless of all that.
All right, you made us go 2 minutes over. Sorry. Let's go to break. When we come back, what are we doing next? Is the NCAA tournament taking too much away from the regular season? Getting back to that Barnes thing. See, we're doing football, basketball, back and forth today. Come on back on the Sports Source.